You don't know what to expect. Greetings. Greetings.
What is it, 818 or something like that? What is it, 818 or something like that? Okay, well, good evening all. Welcome to the October 5th meeting of the Growth Planning Committee. We will start off as normal with members and guests, and we do have a Good evening, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Paul?
I am here. Thank you. Nice to see everybody.
Mr. McMahon?
Good evening.
All right. See, did I miss anyone on the board? I don't think so. Okay, then Liz?
Hi everyone, Liz Durfee.
And last but not least, Mr. Morgan?
Tom Morgan.
All right. All right, so welcome all. Thank you for coming this evening. So the second thing on our agenda is to talk about the input from our workshop, number 2. So who takes the con on that, Liz or Tom?
You want to kick it off?
Sure, I sure can. You guys got an attachment about a week ago with the agenda. Do you,
Yes,
kind
we
of a
did.
summary of all the comments?
Yeah.
Should we share that screen right now?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. Now, you tell me how it looks. Can you see it okay?
Looks good.
Good, okay. So what Liz and I did is we organized the comments. You know, they were coming fast and furious. There's quite a lot of comments coming over the chat. And we organized them by topic so that it's a lot easier to kind of like focus on one topic at a time. That's, you know, see what the variety of opinion is. And some of them there was a range of opinion. Some people would say this, and the other. Suddenly somebody said, I don't agree with that. You probably noticed that if you had a chance to review it. When we sent it to the town a week ago. But I was pleased with the breadth and the number of comments, considering it's only a 2-hour session. And see on this chart here, we've color coded it, so all the ones in red have to do with housing and density and lot size. Green is natural resources. We had one comment on office use. Town facilities were another one that generated a lot. And then, of course, the third part of the session had to do with sea level rise, so that generated quite a few comments. Got the sense that the audience, or at least people in the community, who started to appreciate that dock square is going to be a hard challenge to solve. But it's good to get them thinking and talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be interested what the Growth Planning Committee, what your takes on the session was, what how you think it went, and the level of usefulness that comments provided.
I was very pleased with interaction of the folks that joined us and their participation in this. I was hopeful that we would have a little bit more people joining us, around 50 or so, to kind of match what we had in our first workshop. But obviously, on Zoom and so forth makes it a challenge. Overall, you guys did an awesome job managing that, especially being able to pull and get that engagement from the townsfolks. And it was good. There was passion in some of their responses, which is good to see. And having people on opposite sides of the debate discussing it is obviously a good thing. So I thought it went very well. Anyone else?
Yeah, can I make a comment? I hope there's a way to advertise meetings like that better, because I know a lot of people who would have loved to attend but didn't really know about it till the day or so before through me, and already had plans, so couldn't get on the Zoom. So I know the answer is always, well, check the town website for any meetings you might want to go to, but people don't really have time to do that on a regular basis. So if there's a way to put something in the Kennebunkport, or I don't know,
yeah,
but just get the word out there more, because I know a ton of people care about this topic.
Liz, it's a good comment you make, and it's one we almost talk about every time we have one of these sessions, is how can we do better? But I'll tell you, I don't know how many people use Google, but I have a Google News as one of my home pages, and it has Kennebunkport as a home thing. And for 3 or 4 days, there was a link to Seacoast talking about our session. Right? So we've tried very hard to try to reach out through the mailings, right? So everyone can sign up for the town of Kennebunkport and receive a mailing on when we're going to have events. We've used that tool. We have used the Seacoast CoStar. Certainly on our website and our meetings. Any other ideas you have to help us reach out to the community, especially in these times where everything's so remote, would be appreciated, absolutely. But we do want more people for sure.
Yeah. I have a
Some more
suggestion.
feedback.
I think no one does it better than David James. And Liz, if your friends and neighbors are not members of the Kennebunkport Residents Association, the dues are very inexpensive. I think it's $10 a year. And you receive every day, you receive very important and valuable information about what's happening in town.
Yep.
And Dave Powell, who is running the technology for us tonight, is the actual treasurer. But if you contact me, I will send you the information necessary for folks to sign up. It is I think, the most surefire way of being informed of anything that's happening in town related to town government and activity, including road closures. It's got everything. So that might help.
Yeah, and this is Paul. We gave it to him. He posted it twice.
Yep.
And we gave it to the trust. They have a huge mailing list. And he posted it twice. I don't think we ever rely upon the website, the town website, because nobody goes to look at the town website for events. That's just not how communication works.
Right.
But we didn't do ads in papers.
I think that receiving those updates on your Gmail every day are definitely the way to go. It's right there with all the details. He does a very thorough job of explaining the event and the time and everything you need to know. So, and again, with the trust as well. So those are two great organizations. If you're affiliated with them, then you'll get the news.
But, just throw it out to anyone who's watching or will watch in the future. If you have another idea or another way, another method you think we could reach more people, please feel free to let us know. Our goal is to be as transparent and open and get as much feedback from the community as we can as we go through this process. So thanks for bringing that up, Liz.
I have a Google search that I have all the time for my son. And I'm going to tell you, every day I get something. He shows up anywhere, but we could narrow that down to a very specific name. And if that shows up, everybody that has one of these would be notified.
Yeah. That's a good point, Jim. I use that for work for a couple different things, like get them every morning, get an alert on the topic I want to search. Anyone else have comments on the evening or the information that's been provided in the comment sections?
Yeah, I think that, I just, Liz and Tom did a great job. I think they, the flow was incredible, and the information that we put together in 2 hours was really good. And I think it captured, a lot of interest, and, hopefully it will gain more traction for more people to be interested. So thank you very much to the two of you for staying on task and really sticking to the time. It's great.
Thank you, Jim.
Did we post this grid on the website?
No, but we certainly will, and it'll show up as an appendix in the final comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it might be good to send out, kind of as a grid and say, if you have other comments, send them wherever, because I had heard the same kind of comments on, people who couldn't attend or thought there wasn't enough time to express opinions, which of course, it was a very aggressive, tight schedule.
Yeah.
We could have used a whole Saturday on the topic.
Excellent idea. Jen, what about the Residents Association? Do you think they would send out a PDF of the comments we've already received and say, look, this is what we've got? And
I think we could ask. I could definitely contact Dave and ask him if he would do that.
Because once they see the format and the types of comments that are submitted, maybe people say, well, I don't agree with that. Maybe with this, or how about, that's a great idea, but it'd be even better if you did it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
That's a great
think
idea.
sending this out, as Paul suggested, is a great idea. Just have to find the vehicle, but I'll contact Dave tomorrow.
Okay.
And how would you get the feedback? Just ask them to send comments in whatever format they wanted to?
Yeah, on the project website, we have an email that's dedicated to, anything having to do with the project. It's just regular, plain vanilla email.
Yeah, I think if we had some type of, just a uniform, some uniform language or notification that we could post up there on the subscribers, that we have, indicating, where they can go to see the comment list. I think that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Even if, whether it's that PDF or whether it's a link straight back that takes you to where it's posted on the project site. Yeah, either one of those would work.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, and then give them the link to send further comments if they didn't participate or if they have other follow-up.
Yeah, I would suggest put that right on the very top under comments and questions submitted, or above that. Just say please review these. If you would like to add some additional comments, please reference the section. Like housing, entry level, affordability, and send to this email address. And then hopefully, you put a link in Adobe, that should work. Is that doable?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the PDF part's easy, and sending the email. As soon as we receive the email, it lands right in my box.
Okay, good deal.
Okay.
Maybe include the next dates of these meetings and other meetings like that one the other night that people can zoom in on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
We do have a couple social media pages, and so we can post the information there too. We have a very small following, but a couple people I think at least are aware that there is a Facebook page and an Instagram presence for this project, so we can send out an alert that way too. And I don't know if a press release would be appropriate. We've had pretty good success with getting press releases in the paper when we have an event. But we could certainly probably get another flyer posted on the public access channel too. I'm not sure that Seacoast, the Coast Star, is going to be too jazzed about a follow-up comment document. It's not as exciting news as the workshop itself.
Mm-hmm.
But we can certainly try to get something posted there.
Sure.
What I have noticed about that Seacoast Media Group is they keep thinning out their reporting staff, and various groups have submitted articles. They look just like a reporter would have written it, except of course it's not a reporter. They've been happy to use that to fill up their newspaper because they don't have as much staff as they used to. So we can try that, and we could send them an article that looks like a news article.
There we go.
Liz, which are you talking about, a Facebook page like the one we have, or are you talking about another one? Because if you send that through email, I can always forward that to other people that, just like, Janet was going to do to get people interested in, providing more comments. Is that what you're thinking?
So what I was thinking is that I could post just a short announcement and the link to the PDF of comments and ask people to respond if they have additional feedback. And then, you could share that if you want.
I can do that. I mean, I'd like to get it so I can do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, this conversation's been productive. You guys have come up with some several good ideas.
Yeah, we do once in a while.
So I have a question for folks on the input we received. Are there areas of the comprehensive plan of the existing chapters that you think we need to go back and revisit based on some of the feedback we received, or are there particular topics that folks commented on that you want to make sure we really pay attention to when we're developing our strategies?
I think
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Jim.
I mean, I think as long as we're covering, those in the chapters, it's clear that this is, when we implement this and it possibly leads to some kind of ordinances down the road, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be heavily invested in, having a say. So as long as we're identifying it and putting them in there, we need to.
You mean putting the comments in?
No, were you referring to identifying, what we spoke about and ensuring that they're in the chapters? Because I thought that's what we've done. Maybe I misunderstood you.
Yeah, so I guess I was thinking if there are any topics or comments that came up that that you thought maybe warranted another look in the existing topic chapters that we've drafted. Do we need to go back into those chapters and explore a specific topic a little bit more? Or are there comments in here that you really want to make sure we include when we're developing our strategies?
Yeah, I mean, the couple comments that were made that I thought were important, and I'd have to honestly go back and see, or as we go forward, how we deal with those. I mean, there was the ones concerning the village parcel, where some folks felt it should be in the plan and some folks felt it should not be, and how we address that. I mean, we can't just ignore it. It was a pretty big expenditure by the town, and they would, they have some plans which I don't think have been well publicized as well for that. So I think that's one topic we need to take a look at and see how we incorporate that.
That shouldn't be a problem, Dan. And it's not just a big project, but it's a big piece of property too.
Exactly.
So one comment was a question. They said, well, what happens next with the village parcel? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not sure. Werner, can you give us some thoughts on what might happen next with the village parcel?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There's not a direct timeline, that's been developed yet by the Board of Selectmen as far as, next steps. Although there has been work done in regards to the infrastructure question piece of it. So there's been, the town is currently looking at developing an up-to-date design to be used for, budgeting, as well as potential future RFPs for the first, I'm going to say approximately, a little over 2,000 feet of infrastructure coming in off of North Street. So, so there's movement forward in that regard. I think it's good to talk in concept about having discussions with potential future partners for developing the property based on feedback received from the village parcel meetings. But in order to really have meaningful dialogue, it's really important to have a good, clear understanding of some of the infrastructure costs, based in today's dollars going into the property. And I think one of the challenges with that, it's we can work forward with coming up with a design and some good design documents and budgeting documents. The challenge will be in working through and developing the tools that allow for those types of uses to be developed without adding any additional significant tax burden to the town. The charge has been moved forward, but it's very clear that development of that piece isn't supposed to encumber any additional tax burden on the community. So it's a heavy lift, to move that way, but it starts with getting some real design work done, in particular on the infrastructure piece. That's really just the sewer and water going into the property, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I read I wasn't able to attend the meetings. I didn't participate in the process, but I did read the final report. And it said something to the effect, well, town of Kennebunkport, you have several options. You could do this, you could do that, you could do this third one over here. Those are all feasible. Has the town kind of narrowed the field at all, Werner? Or?
Well, for those folks who followed, there was a proposal with the climate initiative that's looking to develop and build out their headquarters here in town. And so there was a potential proposal there with them for a particular piece of property located up on the other side of the power line right away. So just over the line into the free enterprise zone. That's been, certainly has been put on hold as we got estimates back for infrastructure costs that, were significantly higher than what we initially walked into with some of the other numbers that we used in the visioning session. So, a little bit of time that had gone by, plus, the fact that we're looking at, COVID, inflated numbers, certainly I think was a bit, put a damper on bringing something forward to the town to consider.
A question.
Go ahead.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
I just want to say there are some participants also on this, and we didn't really say how people could participate if they wanted to, if they had comments. So I don't know if we're using the chat function, but we should tell people where to raise a hand if they want to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't notice that on our. Yeah, so anyone who has joined us, and we appreciate you joining us. If you would like to add a comment, should have a chat feature available to you, or if you'd like to speak, just please raise your hand. We'll be happy to have you participate in our discussion. Right. Thanks, Paul.
I have a quick question. Obviously, I'm new to the group here, but is there a separate committee working on this village parcel concept, or is it just the selectmen? I don't understand why it wouldn't sort of obviously be part of the comprehensive plan. It's the biggest piece of land close by. I don't see how it cannot be part of what we're doing for the next 10 years.
Yeah, Liz, it absolutely will be part of the plan. I threw a question out to Werner just because I wasn't sure what the town's next steps were. So I was just trying to bring myself up to date.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that people on the growth planning committee wouldn't know what's going on with that. Like, is it a separate committee? Is it the select?
Yes.
How has what's been drawn up thus far been created? By whom?
There was a separate committee that was put together to manage that with a separate consultant.
Right.
And they went through and they issued a final report, whereas the growth planning committee has been working on the new comprehensive plan. And it will certainly include, I was just commenting that there were guests at our workshop where some were for including it and others were against including it. So there is, there's not a consensus, at least amongst townspeople, or at least those who participated in our workshop, on whether it should be included or not. And I know that there's not an absolute set path on how we're going to proceed with there. So if it's going to be in the comp plan, we want to make sure the key is that what we end up wanting to do there, whatever that may be, we want to make sure our comp plan is written in a way that allows it to be consistent with what we do there.
Yeah.
So that's the piece. That's the important part of our plan is the land use ordinances that we want to put in place need to be consistent with our plan to give them some validity in court if we get challenged.
Yeah, Liz, the town hired some consultants to study the village parcel. They came up with a master plan that was published about a year ago. And Myrna, tell me if I'm wrong, but you could probably find it on the town website.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the plan. Yep.
And I would just add that to date, we haven't, I wouldn't say we've excluded the village parcel. That study was ongoing, I think, when we started this process of the comp plan, and we include information about the village parcel. We don't have recommendations about what the future of the village parcel should be in the comprehensive plan. That hasn't been part of the process of putting this comprehensive plan together.
Right.
Because there was a separate study.
I mean, I think to me, it seems like we would want to add it in or incorporate it. Not necessarily like Liz said, it's not a recommendation, but it kind of helps set the expectation of, what the outcome is and how things are done in the future where, we have a lot of people that don't want development. We're seeing this is a potential development. So it kind of helps set the expectation, hopefully, and the discussions we have on both parts to, see where we land and what continued development, is acceptable and what's not.
Right. It certainly offers some opportunities to solve some problems in town. Right. We talked a little bit about the Dock Square and it getting flooded. I mean, there is always the option to turn that into a new Dock Square. It also has the opportunity of providing some connectivity from North Street over to the School Street area. So from a emergency services response, it will make it a lot easier for us to get from the village station down into the Cape Porpoise area, or for chems to get up to the village area than current. So there's some benefits there as well for connectivity. But what the right solution is, I mean, that's something for the town to decide. I think we just want to make sure our comprehensive plan is supportive of ideas that have been thrown about. Where we think it makes sense. If we don't think some of those things make sense, then we can certainly talk about that, right? We're the ones putting the plan together. But we want the feedback from the town folks, and the initial feedback, at least in the short session. And it maybe is something we want to talk about for a poll. About people's feelings about that plan, and if they know about it, and because we did have some people say we want it in the plan, and some people don't want it in the plan. So we should hear them out.
I think it's necessary to understand. It's kind of an open-ended question. We do or we don't. Like, you know what I mean? It's, do they do they not want it because they're not happy with the current suitor that's buying it, or is it just they don't want it developed at all? They just, prefer to have it,
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. Great question.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to understand that from the comments.
Yeah. I mean, it's very conceptual right now, right? So it's not like a concrete plan that the town wants to do this. So
Is it is it worthy of mention in the sections where, how this gets applied? It's almost like how do we deal with town property? How does that, specifically dealt with the land use in relation to private ownership? And, we have a different subset of development,
Well, one chapter we have not yet drafted, and that's called the future land use chapter. And that's where you're going to see the village parcel make an appearance. And like Dan said, I want to make sure that we're in sync with, which direction the town is going. Like 2 months from now, the selectmen make, a major decision about village parcel. We want to make sure that we capture that and okay, that's the direction the town's going. So let's make sure the plan is consistent with that.
Right.
But it's the future land use chapters where this 87-acre parcel is going to show up.
And on the other side of that as well, we also can help frame that, right? Because we have some good survey evidence of what's important to the people in town, such as natural resources and so forth. So, for instance, if the town selectmen decided for whatever reason they wanted to put a manufacturing plant in that area, we want to make sure our town, that's not what the rest of the town is telling us. We want to make sure that there's, that we are stressing that we want to do conservation and protecting land use and so all that kind of stuff, and natural resources. Obviously, that's not what the selectmen are bringing forward, but so we in our comprehensive plan could also help frame what that will look like based on the feedback we receive from the townspeople in the surveys and so forth, and in the spot polls that we've done and the other outreach events. Right. So it's a little bit of a dance. That's what it is when you're dealing with, ideas.
At the end of the dance, the comp plan will go to town meeting. Then we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
So, which means we have to be in sync with.
You have to be in sync.
The community is voting. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
And the timing is tricky on this particular issue because if the contemplated sale is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, it also would have to go to the voters of the town in order to sell that property. It's tricky because I don't think office buildings was one of the things in the vision statement for the parcel, and yet because of that's the first offer to come along, I guess. So that's there, but it doesn't exactly lie well within the village parcel vision. I could be wrong, but I never heard anybody suggest we wanted to have an office park in there. There was housing, maybe some municipal services, maybe natural resource protection.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Hey, Warner. Oh, go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
But again, at the end of the day, it was kind of an open-ended proposal. You could do A, B, or C, or some combination of, as Tom said.
Remember, this is only a lot we're talking about that's currently being looked at. It's not the whole parcel. You got to be careful with your words because the whole parcel is a huge parcel. But we're only talking one lot, basically, for...
Well, it's not one lot. It's how many acres?
87.
No. The proposal to sell this chunk is Warner would know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, that was approximately 3.5, 4 acres is is what the piece was. So yeah, it's a good, it's a good point. And, in regards to the report, it's a significant document that was created for the town, that underwent a process. It went through, a multitude of, meetings and hearings that were, attended by members of the public. There were, a significant number of, different sessions that were held, where feedback was gathered, and that's reflected, in that report. Does everybody like what it says? Probably not, but that's the case, I think, with any study document that municipalities may commission, to have created. We have a couple of housing policy documents that have been created. And does everybody agree with those? Probably not. But there's significant studies that were done by professionals that help guide the town in terms of its decision making. So in that regard, I think it's important to not ignore those types of documents, but to recognize them as the resource that they are. And at the very least, they need to be referenced in the plan in some fashion. You may not take a firm position, one way or the other with a plan. Again, keeping in mind, you're dealing with a 10-year plan, but it's a significant amount of work that the town authorized and put forward, and again should be referenced in some fashion in the plan.
Courtney, you bring up a good point, and I don't know if this is worthy of discussing. When we did our charrette, and we were just using the piece of property near the school as an example, it seemed to stir up a lot of conversation to say, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. That's not what that piece of property was bought and intended for. So, does it make sense to also consider, like, town properties purchased and had certain intentions, and how do we incorporate that into that chapter to say, if things change or whatever, those kind of documents that get referenced and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Jim. And I think it's appropriate when looking at a piece of property to say, well, here are some things that it could be used for. Ultimately, you all as residents and taxpayers, that's a valid question to ask. But I think the other, thing that folks should keep an open mind about is that sometimes those needs and directions will change. And so 20 years from now, a statement that was made in a Warren article may no longer be the needs of the town, 20 or 30 years from now. So for example, the piece that you're talking about there, I think there was mention in the article about, if we ever need to do any sewer plant expansion, this piece, being proximate to the sewer plant, may be appropriate for that type of expansion. The question is, does that mean that forever and ever, amen, that piece is, bound to be set aside for sewer plant expansion? Well, maybe not. But I think, so you have to keep the door a little bit open in terms of what a piece of property could be used for, as long as you're following, the appropriate process to bring that back to, the folks who authorized it in the first place.
Yeah, and I know Ed Hutchins, when we were actually in the discussion, it was brought up, about the forest, and he kind of reiterated that that's what it's intended for. And, we couldn't build a fire department there if we really needed to. So it's kind of goes on the same thing you were just referring to. Does that need change? And, if we did something like that, what do we offset? Do we remove the building fire department where it was to make a forest again, or
yeah,
I don't know. To go to higher elevation because we don't want to, the sea level change.
What's tricky with town, with town properties is that one of the things that you have to look at is how did the town acquire the property in the first place? It's a very important distinction. And it's important because property that the town purchases, so you have a legislative action that occurred, right? You all as the voters, whether it's you or whether it was 3 generations ago, made a legislative decision to purchase a piece of property. Okay. And so if that wants to be sold, that goes back through that same process. Now it's different if you have a piece of tax acquired property, so that's a different process that you go through, in terms of the disposition of those. So every year at town meeting, the town votes and authorizes for the selectmen, to be able to dispose of tax acquired property. Okay. And that's, and part of the reason why that happens each year is that you have, in the same way that you got those larger pieces through tax liens, every year the town winds up issuing tax liens on properties for non-payment of taxes. And so what that authorization does is every year it allows for the discharge of that. So essentially you're returning that interest, that the town may have acquired for non-payment back to the property owners. So it's an important piece of legislation to have. But it also allows for the disposition of those pieces that were maybe fully acquired. So I don't know. It's an important one to recognize that it does truly matter how the town acquired the property in terms of, from mechanics on how whether it's sold or, whatever happens, that helps direct that.
We have like a short section in the existing land use chapter that has a couple basic statements about the parcel, where it's located, size, area of wetlands. And I think that Tom mentioned the future land use chapter would be a place to kind of expand on that discussion. And what we haven't gone back to do is update either the existing land use chapter or other chapters on sort of the status of the village parcel. The study is complete. Here are the key findings. This is what was discussed. And so that information can be incorporated into existing land use and or future land use, depending on sort of what the committee is comfortable with and interested in, I think. And perhaps Tom and I can work on drafting up that language and sharing it with you. And then we can discuss when we review the future land use chapter if it best fits in that chapter or if some of it belongs in the existing land use chapter also.
Yeah, and I'm anticipating that this committee is going to scrutinize that paragraph. So.
I would think it would go into, given the timing that the report was over 2 years ago, that it's kind of the status quo at this point. It's existing land use. And the report and recommendations are, they're fact at this point. They are the history. And where it goes from now, is, to be discussed in future.
Right.
But most of it, the special committee, adopted its recommendations, and that's history.
Right. What I'm anticipating is that the comp plans simply kind of mirror the master plan report. And, the master plan at the end said, well, the town could do this, this, or that. And what I think the comp plan is going to say is, well, the very same thing. The town could do this, this, or that. And then the town hasn't made a decision yet, hasn't chosen a road forward. But that's all we can do, because it's not in our hands.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the end of their plan, I was just looking at it, has the next steps. And it lays out 4 steps with multiple bullets, of which the last one includes engaging us to evaluate further the community priorities. So.
Oh, we will.
We will. Yeah.
And as far as that town forest comment goes, I interpreted, there was a selectman that made that comment, right?
Yes, Ed Hutchins.
I think what he was telling us in so many words is that a lot of people assume there's a deed restriction on that deed, and in fact, there isn't.
Yeah, that was my takeaway too.
Right. So that's another recommendation for this committee is, okay, so we have a town forest that's not protected. Well, what do we recommend? You know?
That's across from my house, right? Warner?
Is that where it is?
On Goose Rocks Road?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we got conflict of interest there on any decision?
No, you can put a fire department right across the street if you want. That's fine.
Very good.
My insurance would go down.
Okay.
So the other item we have on tonight's agenda, I don't know if you're ready to move on to it, is the vision statement. We've taken a couple of cracks at that, and it's generated a great deal of conversation. So this, you guys have made some progress. You're about a page and a half into it, but you got a ways to go. You feel like taking that on now?
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Why don't I take this down? I'm going to share the screen with a different document now. See if I can. There we go.
And you're sharing the same one that's up on the website under.
Yes, it's version 7. It's the one that went out in the mail. For some reason, I'm not able to share right now.
Want me to pull it up?
Sure.
All right.
There we go. Okay. So Liz, if you could scroll down in the middle of page 2, that's where we left off.
Page 2? Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness.
You had us a lot of lively discussion on this stuff. So we're only in the middle of page 2.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Now, I guess not the middle. We're down toward the bottom of page 2.
Where did we leave off? We were talking about the solar farms, maybe?
This right here.
Recording in progress.
And then it was 8 o'clock and we called it a night. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on these next 2 paragraphs. We're in what's the category here?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm going to pull my paper copy up. That'll help. Infrastructure. So you got 2 more paragraphs of infrastructure to talk about. So what do you all think of these 2 paragraphs?
The only piece the first one I was fine with. When we got into broadband, how do we as a town encourage competition? I guess is the point. I mean,
Well, 2 ways. One is every 5 to 10 years, your broadband people have to come to the town to renew their license, and then they have a negotiation with the selectmen, and that's when the town has a chance to, put a little pressure on them. And the other way is, what's the second way you could do? Oh, the other one is important. Is you can simply put a recommendation in your comprehensive plan, and if it's the recommendation, for example, is, we need better broadband down at Goose Rocks. I'm just being hypothetical. When the relicensing does come up, the selectman can go to the provider and say, look, it's right in our plan. We're not just kind of shooting from the hip here. This is important to the town. It's part of the bigger picture.
okay.
So just who do we which company is that? Does anybody know? Yeah. You're referring to who owns the infrastructure?
Well, Spectrum is the current,
Provider.
Yeah.
sole provider.
Which yeah, the current terrible provider.
Yeah, everybody feels that way about their provider. They're competing to be the worst, you know?
Yeah.
But we all need them, so we'll put up with it.
Yeah. Hey, Warner, do we, I know we talked a couple of years ago about like, like the repeaters and stuff that, get installed, in relation to like new technology that comes out. I don't know if that's considered one that, like when we're referring to like, the beach and getting the coverage and stuff, but I don't know if it's worthy to, we should incorporate that and somehow, I don't know if the wording has to put in there to, encouraging enhancements in technology to, have that coverage.
That sounds like a good one, Jim. Is that, tell me a little more about that issue. There was a proposal of repeaters.
Warner would
That was
probably do it.
That was
Yeah.
related to cell coverage, not
Right.
to broadband.
That's
Right, but as I'm just assuming as technology changes, we got, the latest and greatest is fiber right now, but it's still on the poles. If something's coming down the road where, hey, this great invention can, works just like in your house, and you're going to get some kind of, enhancement on Wi-Fi. It just doesn't necessarily have to be specific, but, again, if that technology is available to encourage it,
That's an excellent point, Jim. We've been looking at the cable, but, the technology is shifting over to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty broad, it's a pretty broad statement, but I don't think it hurts to have supportive language in the plan that acknowledges that, the technology is ever changing, and that, should there be opportunities for the town to engage in, in better, more efficient, technology that helps further, better access for the community, that, that we should encourage and pursue that, and I think language like that is probably about as far as you want to go, just because we don't necessarily know what's, the intricacies of what that may look like in the future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about 5G? Has 5G arrived in Kennebunkport?
Yeah, but it's not. You can't rely on it for internet service at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's slow to. My phone says it's 5G, but
Well, my phone is enabled for 5G, but I asked Verizon. They kind of laughed. They said, "Well, you're not going to get a signal here. You got to go to Boston."
It's copper on the line. Fiber is fiber is more expensive. Dark fiber is expensive, but eventually it's, we encourage them to update the infrastructure to make it better,
Okay, so we'll get some generic language that says something to that effect then.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think where it's, where a lot of that's, where it's privately owned, it's a matter of, where's the demand that justifies the cost for the, for the swap, and the infrastructure, it's similar in the conversations, that we've had with the folks that are putting in, the small cells, is that it's a cost benefit, analysis that they're looking at. Where are they getting the biggest demand, the biggest data demands, to support what their customers' needs are, and I think that's been part of, I think, the bigger broadband, the question and the struggle for Maine is, that, it's always a big discussion of getting broadband into rural parts of Maine, right? And it's this catch-22 of, industry has to see a value with investing in it. And, if there's not a ton of users in that area, then
right. But in Kennebunkport, doesn't everybody have it along the street? Is cable everywhere in town? I mean, because if it isn't, that's the kind of thing that you do require when you negotiate your contract. You say, oh,
Right.
this northwest part of town never got cable because there aren't enough of us. You need to do that.
Paul, that was the exact question I was just about to ask, because the state of Maine claims that the entire town is covered, but I want to do a reality check here and see if you guys know that to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I just took a quick look at, here,
I mean, along every public street. The problem is if someone lives 500 yards down at a dirt road, it may be too expensive to run the wire up, and the cable company, I think, doesn't have an obligation to do that. And you got to pay for that. Is that right, Werner?
correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's my understanding that they're not under that obligation. If you want to, if you want to pull that document down for a minute, I do have pulled up the Connect Me site that has the map that shows, broadband and where it's located and what it's rated at. If anybody's interested.
How many providers there are serve the town?
Well, there's the old, there's just one cable company which has, decent speeds up to 200, I guess. And then there's the phone company, which, is still basically DSL or a little better than that.
Yeah.
Even though I think they have fiber on the poles that just never run it to houses.
Yeah, that's too expensive. That's where it gets too expensive. You'd be paying a lot to tie up in a fiber cutting the line.
So Werner, the way I read this line is only a few tiny places that don't have decent speed, huh?
That's what it looks like. At least that's how it's been reported, anyways. So use that for what it's worth, right?
Okay, now that is, yeah.
But yeah, so that's just off of the Connect Me site.
All right, well,
that shows
good.
that.
This is good news for the town. As you said, a lot of towns in Maine are struggling. They love to have broadband, but they can't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's really important for the economy. It allows you guys to work from home if you want to.
Yeah, the New Yorkers.
So, any other comments on broadband? If not, we can move on to climate resilience. You guys good? Ready for next topic?
Mm-hmm.
Paragraph, climate resilience. What do you think of that verbiage?
I was just thinking we could take out the we will be prepared and we will adapt. I mean, I think it's understood through the rest of the text. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, I don't know what people consider they're being invasive or not.
I'm fine either way.
Any other comments, suggestions, proposals for this paragraph?
You can remove it.
The whole paragraph?
No, just the red.
Just the red. Oh, I see.
Jim, I wish you'd be more clear when you make comments like that.
Let's start at page
I
one.
thought you were starting to get into the slash and burn mode here.
Let's do page one over.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so we're okay with that paragraph. Education. 2 sentences.
So in terms of a comp plan, is there a need to say anything else about any other in the vision? Any other level of education? Or this is really where the community's vision is? The rest nobody's worried about?
You could maybe add, preparing them for future schooling in our district or not in our district. But where young scholars thrive and learn to love learning, that's great. But really, the school is preparing them to move on to the middle school and be able to handle it socially and academically and all the rest of it.
So almost like we will continue to support the RSU or in its endeavors in the middle school and high school.
Or just, we don't even have to mention the RSU.
Yeah.
Want to, just where young scholars thrive and learn to love learning in preparation for moving on to middle school.
Yeah.
Middle
yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Now, when Paul just brought that up, I think what I heard there, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but the paragraph on education, so there's a lot more to education than just what's provided through Consolidated, within the community, and is that, does this paragraph is it just limited to what's provided through the RSU, or do you want to have anything else relative to other educational opportunities that occur within the town?
Mm-hmm.
Or without the town? For example, there's a fabulous program, through the University of Southern Maine, the OLLI program, Osher Learning, which is a great opportunity for senior citizens. You go there and there's dozens of buses every day from all the senior citizen communities, and nothing from here. And like encouraging that kind of learning, that kind of, continuing ed would seem to be, as we have aging in place,
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have any attention to that, it would seem. But Werner, your interpretation of my comment was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, it's, even though, UNE isn't within the town's borders, there's a relationship with UNE that we see, come forward with the town in numerous ways. That may bear some mention here as well.
Yeah. I think some of the most important language in this paragraph is important community institution.
Right.
Because remember that our focus is a comprehensive plan for Kennebunkport. So, the decision not to mention the middle school or high school is deliberate.
Right.
The question is, okay, is this consolidated school worth keeping? I think most people in town would say, yes, absolutely. It's an important community institution. Whereas the middle school and high school they're out there. They're in a different place geographically. They're kind of beyond our control. But the consolidated school is physically in town. That's why the focus is on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not really within our control either. Right.
Well,
the RSU could decide to close that down by a vote. We could lose, and then we'd still have the building. We'd buy it back from them or whatever for $1 or whatever that would be.
They could, but if there are other decisions the town will be making.
Sure, absolutely.
Housing, for example, and if you have enough housing that can support a good sized elementary population, the school will be there for a long time.
But yeah. I guess what else? I think you're right in that we need to identify the consolidated school. But in addition, we're educating our youngsters right up through high school. Right now, it's through the RSU program. 20 years from now, maybe we're doing it some other way. We don't know, right? That comes up as part of your discussions in the school board and so forth.
Right.
But we still have the ownership of educating our children within our community. And that could be, Consolidated School could become kindergarten through 8th grade just for Kennebunkport. And then we send them to some high school if in the future. We don't know. But, this plan is 10 years, has to be redone in 10 years. Not likely we'll be out of RSU 21 in 10 years, but I think we could be generic enough in here to ensure we mention that we cover that education through high school. And I think we bring in Paul's point of providing educational opportunities for others within the community. It could be through the Park and Rec program, could be
For the libraries. too.
something that hasn't been developed yet through the library.
Mm-hmm.
And then potentially we look for ways, how do we support, or how do we integrate UNE into that as well?
UNE?
Yeah, University of New England.
Yeah.
There you go.
I got confused, and then I was like, wait, we're in.
Right.
I mean,
I
certainly.
like a suggestion about including a comment about providing different types of educational resources or opportunities, because that is something that the town could do and does. So I think that's definitely something that could be added in.
What do you mean? Do you have an example?
About educational opportunities.
Yeah.
Like programming, I think Janet mentioned programming at the library,
Okay.
the rec center, that kind of thing.
Trust.
I mean, it'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful if we could reach out to UNE and, a lot of college towns, they allow their seniors to audit classes at the colleges, right, for free. There'd be a way, so that we work with the UNE, even though it's in Biddeford, it's very close. And certainly we could be supportive of them. But that would be
It's a great idea.
Yeah, we have a group out at Goose Rocks that has begun to work with them over the past 2 years to forge
Great.
that kind of a relationship, and they've invited us to events, and but it's really been limited to this group at Goose Rocks, mostly seniors.
Mm.
But that was kind of the vision, Dan. That boy,
great.
UNE is not offering senior learning kinds of opportunities. And is there a way to foster that?
Mm-hmm. And I know they have a tie-in with RSU 21 now with, I think my daughter's going to be taking a class next year that's connected with UNE. Or this year, I'm sorry. So there's that fostering within the school system. So they'll be able to take that and foster within the broader Kennebunkport community would be excellent. That sounds like a good place to start there, Paul.
So is this, are we broadening this to, the first sentence, we're kind of concentrating on elementary education, and we're kind of going to broaden into not necessarily higher level education, but extended education within the community, maybe adults. I don't know if that's worthy. If I'm reading this as I
think you can just add a sentence at the end to mention other educational opportunities, so it's not so narrow.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure it makes sense to whoever's going to read it. We all understand it, but I just want to make sure people that start reading this, they understand when they're not, they reference consolidated school, they assume it's all about elementary education, but definitely have that at the end.
We also, high school kids have a real opportunity to go to classes at YCCC. So we've got schools on both ends.
Yeah, collaboration with local
absolutely. You're
higher
right.
education institutions.
What was that? What's that
That's York-
school?
York County Community.
York County Community College. They have,
South.
they have all kinds of tuition-free college programs for college juniors or high school juniors and seniors.
Yep, that's correct.
Where is that?
York,
In Wells.
it's in Wells. York
Wells.
Where do you live?
Community College.
Well, no, the reason I say that is because I know that there's also kids from the high school that go to Sanford for vocational too.
That's vocational. These are others. But
Yeah.
That's true. They do have that.
you can get your English and math and everything out of the way before you even graduate from high school.
Well, with COVID going, we'll see.
They do it online.
Mr. Optimist.
They do it online.
Listen, my kids are young, and if you start,
So we've had some good comments on
train wreck right now.
good comments on education.
Okay.
Anything more on education, or you want to move to the next paragraph?
Let's go on.
Okay.
That's good.
Municipal staff, services, facilities, and finances. We want to retain our high caliber professional employees. Looking at you, Werner.
Sure.
I think you could get rid of one of the two sentences. Ours will be a safe community, or the crime rate will remain low. I think they both sort of say the same thing.
They do. Which one do you want to keep?
I would keep safe community.
Yeah.
That broadens it to other things besides just crime.
Yeah, and just so you all know, remember we did our sticky dot poll at the Nonento?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the big high scorers. And it was also a high score in the poll you guys did back in 2018 with Southern Maine.
Yep.
What, crime rate being low?
Yeah, a lot of people, they said, what's important to you and what do you like about town? And you'd be surprised, a lot of people said that.
That last sentence, well-designed new venues for accommodating community events, is that we referring to buildings or
Yeah, I guess because a lot of the events will need to be indoors because of the climate. My perception of town is that there aren't, many options for large gatherings.
That was also mentioned in the discussion at the for the land use. I think we had some residents just mentioning that as well. There are no large venues where the town can meet.
Yeah. Other than the gym at
And we mentioned the
Consolidated.
same thing about the fire station as being one of the few community gathering spots.
And the capacity there is what, Dan, do you
It's
know?
very small, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, 55. I mean, if you're inside the bay, we can get a fair amount of people in there.
Hmm.
That's where we held the village parcel vote. There were a lot of folks. And inside the meeting room. Yeah, 69. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Dave.
I think that last sentence there, I think it would be important maybe to just clarify that you're talking about municipal, a municipal structure there. And that it's not you're not talking about commercial structures.
Or like a venue for rock and roll concerts or something?
Right.
Right.
Good.
All right. Who wants to build the outdoor concert venue, right?
There you go. Yeah, that'd be good.
hey, if you put it on the town forest, I could charge parking. I could have a parking lot on my property.
Tom, you're going to have to edit the municipal debt will also be low if we get rid of that prior sentence.
So we'll take out also.
Right.
Is it worthy of just dwelling on that last sentence? And I just want to bring up, like, I know Nantucket does such a great job at supporting us. Is it worthy of putting in there somehow that, private entities are encouraged to help us, or somehow incorporate them somehow? I don't know.
No.
Well, the title is municipal, so it probably wouldn't. It
Right, but
apply, I think.
Yeah. It's not really-
yeah.
There's
We have
one
a comment from the
sorry.
chat that just came in. What kind of community events are you talking about?
Well, for example, a meeting on the comprehensive plan, we've heard we can only fit 55 people in the fire station.
Yep. Yeah, it could be something. Yeah, it could be something that has a dual role as well for emergency.
And remember too, this is a 10-year plan, so I'm not proposing you guys do this next year or the year after.
Sure.
It's just something to put out there as for the future. The idea might become more attractive as time goes on. And
the Taj Mahal.
Well, if we're looking for more, from an emergency plan standpoint, if we were looking to support sheltering folks in our town versus sending them up to KES, right? You could have something that's built that has a dual role.
Right.
A little bit larger to handle bigger meetings, and also has that ability.
Excellent point.
Very good.
I mean, the way I interpreted this sentence was, if you build anything, we should think about community events. It's not saying we should be building anything. It just says, if we build anything, consider this need, which has been identified.
All right.
Absolutely.
Remember, this is the ideal town.
Right. This is the vision.
Not necessarily the one we're going to actually achieve, but we might. We might get that there. Dan, you had a good comment about dual purpose for emergency.
Yeah.
I think you could tag a few words on the end of the paragraph.
Maybe we could add that to that last
multi-purpose.
side. Would serve multiple purposes or multi-purpose.
You just reword it too to say any new municipal venues will be well designed and be able to accommodate community events. Any new municipal venues will be well designed and be able to accommodate community events and emergency, whatever.
Yeah. Or catering to multi-purposes.
Yeah. I'd just be a little concerned with the word any, because there may be some needs where we don't really need that. We just have some smaller needs.
Yeah, or just new.
But that's for sure. New venues. Yeah, there we go.
Will be well designed.
And once the need is met, you'd sort of disregard this in the future. If like Werner said, 10 years from now, something happens and then it's no longer a priority.
Yeah, so I can tell you from a practical perspective, there's, Dan just mentioned, the shelter, the shelter question, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's, whenever you start getting into buildings that can potentially get designated as emergency shelters, you wind up with, a fair list of things that you have to consider as part of that, part of the design of that. The big ticket items, that you get involved with wind up being, shower and bathroom facilities as well as, standby generator power, that winds up, right. And kitchen, those types of things that if you're going to have something that's an actual real, designated, shelter area. So I think those things have come up in discussion, previously in terms of building design. And I can tell you those are, not saying it's right or wrong, but those are usually items that get cut first from a budget discussion.
They get very expensive because of all the requirements that you have to meet.
Yeah.
In order to, you got all your ADA requirements. You got a lot of stuff you got to meet to do that.
Right.
I mean, the village fire station was somewhat designed to accommodate, but it's pretty small in what it can do there.
Right.
Is there another question in the chat?
There is, yep. It says, why not encourage existing venues to accommodate large gatherings?
We do that certainly with RSU 21 with the consolidated school, and we use their gym, I think, just every year for our public meeting in June. And I would anticipate that that's not going to change unless something happens with the whole RSU 21 structure.
Right.
And it would probably own it. So.
The Nonantum hosted that thing in July.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And they've done it. They did the charrette for us a few years back. So, there are a handful of the local businesses that are very supportive, like Nonantum.
Yeah, I mean, practically speaking, I think there's, as long as the community is maintains good working relationships with those third parties, that's what really makes that type of thing work.
Yeah. It relies on relationships. Right.
You guys ready to move on to waterfront access?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Everybody should have it.
We have I guess the last sentence of waterfront access was public shuttles to Goose Rocks Beach, and then I see not everybody agrees with that idea. So how are we going to handle that difference of opinion?
Have nice bike paths so people can ride their bikes down. Yeah, I don't think we can put that in there.
Yeah, I would recommend
that caused the whole problem, honestly.
Yeah, I'd recommend removing the shuttle language. Yeah, you'll have enough debate just with the bathroom part. So
yeah.
We don't want a controversial document. It's just a past town meeting.
Yeah.
Come on.
Anything else about waterfront access?
So because the future land use chapter will identify or has the opportunity to identify critical waterfront areas, to designate critical waterfront areas similar to your other growth rate areas, if you think that you might want to prioritize waterfront uses in any areas of town, protect waterfront uses in any way, it would probably be good to have some language in your vision about that. And then that could be expanded on in the future land use chapter. And that's something that can be changed after the future land use chapter discussion, but I just want to make sure everyone's
All right.
thinking of that as we work on this particular section.
Yeah, there was a suggestion in the red text, right, to add to protect beach access for Kennebunkport taxpayers at all times of the year.
Right.
Why
This
don't
is
we
not, we
why don't we
haven't
just
really
put-
mentioned boat access, and I think that was something that we all agreed was lacking.
Someone commented on it.
That's what I just,
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we should put that in there.
Yeah, I think that should be included.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just bringing everybody's attention. We've had 3 comments coming in on chat.
Yeah, we could, in the first sentence, why don't we say, we'll enjoy ample opportunities to access year-round Kennebunkport's waterfront, which would include the beaches and the docks and everything else, to address that comment at the bottom in red.
Yeah, local residents will enjoy year-round opportunities to access to Kennebunkport's waterfront.
How about the word boat? Do you want to slip that in there somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. We should. If there's an
slip?
opportunity comes up for us to get a boat launch, public boat launch.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we should support it.
Well, the next time the breakwater inn comes up for sale,
Scrap.
Should get ready for that. Right by Government Wharf.
Thought the village parcel was expensive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'd get your venue building too. So,
It's true.
So how are you going to add public boat access? Another sentence?
Yeah, I think so. So at least we got 2 sentences for it.
Separate sentence. There's a couple of relevant comments in the chat. Boat access for the average person. Yes, please to boat access. Islands should be accessible for all. And can you discuss the suggested addition in red? I think that's the
Okay.
here.
The suggested addition in red was comments from the committee or from the public. They came in a few weeks ago.
Okay. So,
Well, I think the comment, the second sentence in red came in from someone else. I think we addressed that by putting year round up above. I don't think we need to, I don't think we need to separate out the beach. It's waterfront access, which includes beach, and, it's all in.
And a BUA, is that beach use agreement?
No, that sentence we've already taken care of. We can get rid of that because we got rid of the, we can do.
I was just wondering what it meant.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody, including the audience, understands that the red text is not part of the vision statement. Those are simply comments that have been made, folks.
Right, and I think the person who gave the comment on the beach access is happy we added year-round up top. I just saw that comment, and I know who made the comment originally. It was provided to me, and I put it in there.
insider information.
Okay.
Good.
Well, now I remember.
We're going to add a sentence about boat access to the end of waterfront access, but the rest of this text I can delete now?
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
so.
Okay.
Currently, there isn't public boat access, so you'd have to make that sort of a futuristic statement.
Right, it should be in the strategy, it should be in the
Yeah.
goals.
Oh, that's why we use the word will.
Yeah,
Will.
it does exist, but it's very subtle and you have to know about it. It's not,
Right.
The Talbot's Cove?
it's not obvious.
Well,
It
and
will
that-
be.
I mean, there
It's
isn't
not
access
free.
with lots of parking, I would think. That was kind of what we kind of decided that good parking helps people access the water. And that was one of the difficult things. People can access water if they walk their boats to the water in several locations, but there isn't good parking.
Right, well, that's worth putting in there. So
Yeah.
probably at the very end list, you could add something about parking.
Well, and that type of, boat access, it recognize it means different things to different people.
Right.
You could have, kayak access is one thing, but, the ability to back a trailer down into the river, or into the harbor, is a whole other animal in and of itself.
Exactly.
But I can tell you, it's been, waterfront, public waterfront access has been a common theme that has been in, all the versions of the comp plan that I've read through. So certainly one that should remain. And again, and if opportunity, arises, it's something that's, that should be looked at.
We do have a lot of rugged shoreline too. It's not like it's all there on private property.
Right.
It's
Right.
far and few between. And Talbot's Cove is just, really, you said that when we talked about that, Talbot's Cove is,
Where's
we have the
Talbot's Cove?
ability
I'm confused. Do you mean Turbot's Creek?
to, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Talbot's
I
Creek.
just wanted to
Yeah,
know where
sorry.
you were.
I'm glad yeah. So
That's
when we talked about that, was that, it was permissible over private property to launch a boat? And there was like 2 spots for parking down there?
Yeah, there's very limited parking. I was also informed over the summer that actually there is that Ellie Dow through the Kennebunkport Trust. I think she gave part of her property as a launch area to the trust. That's just something I was told this summer. And I do know that by the pole at the end of Turbot's Creek Road, I think there are 2 spots, and that's it. Otherwise, you park on the side of the street, in front of the house. In other words, there are 2 dedicated spots for that area.
But even still, there's only room for about 6 cars total down there.
I didn't even know you could put 6. I mean, along the part in front of
On the
people's
house.
homes.
Yeah.
In front of people's houses on the side of the road. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
One of the
Very
comments,
limited.
one of the comments that came in via chat said islands should be accessible for all. Do we want to mention islands in this paragraph?
Are they all public or are they private?
I mean,
Or they are both?
Isn't that the trust property?
Well,
Except one just got sold into private hands.
And the trust welcomes visitors, but how do you get there? I think is the question that's being raised.
Right, that's the problem. They're
I think you
open.
can go to the trust and get a permit to go to camp on Vaughan Island.
Yeah,
And
lots
I
of
do know that.
Right. But I think that this comment says, well, it's nice that we're welcome and we have a permit, but how do we get there?
right,
Walk
There's
across
limited-
the low tide.
right. There's just limited access, limited parking. As Carol Morris just
Oh,
pointed out,
Carol,
you don't
okay,
need a
sorry.
permit. Yeah,
I'm
you don't
using
need
the
a
wrong
permit.
terminology. Sorry.
Right. You just make a
Right.
reservation and it's free. Unbelievably.
I've camped there with my kids. It's fun.
So what about if we change the first sentence? It says local residents will enjoy year-round opportunities to access Kennebunkport's waterfront and islands. Adding islands there?
Well, no, because then you're providing access to the islands. How? You're going to provide boats?
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. That should be a goal. Make it easier for people to get to the island.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you. We're discouraging.
I would just say waterfronts.
Yeah.
I mean,
they are Kennebunkport's waterfront. The island is
Right.
included in that.
islands included.
All right.
Right. I mean, the people who want to visit islands find a way to go by a canoe
Right.
or the kayak, or
Yeah.
they go at low tide and they walk out.
I don't envision us having a municipal launch and
I don't either.
taking people over there. And
No public transportation to the island.
We're discouraging a public shuttle to the beach. I don't think it's.
I was suggesting that. I was suggesting
yeah.
if waterfront access is an issue, then getting to the islands is also problematic.
Well,
Okay, I think we beat that one up pretty well. Guys ready for the next topic?
Please.
sure.
Regional cooperation. Paul, you mentioned one time when we were reviewing the chapter on regional cooperation, you were surprised at a number of different ways Kennebunkport has cooperated with nearby communities. And you were right. It's pretty unusual to see a town of this diplomatic reach that extends all over the place. So the comment has been made that we should cite water pollution control as one of the important ways in which the town could engage in regional cooperation. How does everybody think about that?
It works for me.
You could add it to that last
Good.
sentence. Climate change, water
Water quality.
quality are 4 areas.
Right, because we got that, and then we also talked about the get the terminology, the watershed, where aquifer. I couldn't think of aquifer. Right, the aquifer up along the Biddeford Kennebunkport line, right?
Yeah.
That's an opportunity for us to make sure that we get that. Work with the Biddeford to make sure it's protected.
Yeah. Yeah, Benefit's doing their part.
Yeah. Well, work with them, they could teach us how we can do ours. Make sure it's protected.
And what about, I mean, it's worthy of incorporating some economic cooperation too?
Oh, when you go back and look at the regional chapter, you can see there's about 20 different ways the town cooperates and benefits. But the town really benefits from this cooperation. So I think if you add all 20 in this paragraph, it'll get kind of cumbersome.
Well, that's a good point, though. Economic would be, it's an important piece. So I think we should add that, because that sort of gives, it's not all.
It does say cost-effective manner already.
Yeah.
I mean, that maybe addresses some of the savings that we result.
I mean, I don't know if the word resiliency and take that out and put.
Yeah, but there's a difference between, I think this is talking about government cooperation in delivery of public services and in meeting, public health, those kinds of things. And I think that's separate than economic development, which a town can encourage, but it's really not. We live in a capitalist private enterprise country. Our government really isn't doing, economic development. Some towns have economic development departments to encourage, to make it easier but that's different than delivery of public services, I think.
Well, is regional cooperation solely public service, though? I don't think so. I think the government serves more purposes than, helping with economic improvement. We're talking about broadband. I mean, if this either this is solely for the purpose of,
well, the paragraph starts off. Our exceptional record in cooperating with nearby communities will continue unabated. Well, what are we talking about there?
Right.
We're talking about sharing services for 911. We're talking about all, sorts of river management. We're talking about all kinds of government, public works kinds of things.
Right. The reason I highlighted climate change and resiliency is because Kennebunkport is in an agreement with 5 other coastal towns in York County on those two topics. And it's really without precedent in Maine. It's being pointed to by the state as an example of a regional cooperation that the rest of the state should pay attention to. The town's really a pioneer. That's why I thought it was worth mentioning there.
But what if we put a term in front of the economics called sustainable economies? Does that address what you were thinking of, Jim?
No, I mean, I just assumed regional cooperation is just more than just what's referenced there. I think
right. It is. It's about, in the text of the chapter, about 20 different topics were cited. Jim, I agree with you. Economic development's important, and I don't have any problem putting it in this paragraph. We bring us up to 5, but just keep in mind there's another 15 that are in the plan.
Yeah, it's just
we could probably take out. Maybe we could take out climate change or resiliency and just leave one of those.
We could do that, yeah.
Transportation. I mean, that's definitely a regional topic. Land use planning.
I just assume we put these in the vision. We're broadening this, and then as Tom said, we're then going to go in the weeds and the details in the chapter, citing 20 different regional cooperations.
Mhm.
But the
But
economy,
we're getting specific if we're referring to, water quality or climate change or, rate response or, specific economic development or something,
Yeah. This sentence is just mentioned to highlight a few different examples. But I never intended to address all 20 in this vision statement.
Yep.
So do you guys like climate change or resiliency better?
Resiliency.
yeah, I like resiliency. And I personally like sustainable economies. But we'll take it whether we need that or not.
Yeah, Southern Maine Planning is going out to bid right now for a consultant to drop a regional economic development plan. So economic development on a regional basis is a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the tricky element then is getting towns to buy into it. Once it's been created. And Maine is not alone in the sense that where you have you've got strong local governments, but yet you have regionally weak governments. County, the county system of government here is doesn't have a lot of a lot of teeth per se or authority in the grand scheme of really dealing with regional issues. The RPCs do a good job, but ultimately it's up to the towns to have to really buy into those to the visions and the plans that that your RPCs put together. But
You have to influence.
Okay, it looks like we've tackled regional cooperation pretty well. Anybody have anything to add here?
There's a
Right.
lot of chats. There's
Right.
14 or so.
I missed that, Liz. What are you pointing out?
A lot of comments in the chat room.
Oh, yes. There's
There's just a couple new ones. One of them is on one of the islands. And I think that it's Folly Island has been purchased privately. It's home to an endangered gull community. What safeguards are in place to protect wildlife and allow non-members to access the island? Well, the town zoning still applies even if the property is not owned by the trust. And I can't speak to non-members accessing the island if it's privately owned. I don't know if anyone else can.
Shoreline zoning dictates, on the town and the state level that you can only do certain things within that area. You can't build, right?
right.
DEP, same thing. You can't build next to a river 75 feet or, some towns it's 250 feet from a shoreline zoning. So
I think this Folly Island comment's a good one. And I think it's certainly worth a recommendation in the comprehensive plan. I don't think it really fits well into the vision though. I mean, right now we're focused on our vision of the town's future. So I think let's take note of the Folly Island comment and bring it back again when we're working on recommendations.
Good.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Then there was a follow-up comment about taking that offline. And then yes to sustainable economy.
So why don't we preface economic with sustainable economic development?
Thanks, Melinda.
Okay, all good comments. How about dark skies? Paul, do you have an opinion on dark skies?
Nah.
That light behind him is from his neighbor's house, by the way.
Yeah, where did this comment in red come from? Who made that?
I think it was Paul. And I've always been puzzled by what I have read in the first sentence as being that we have a significant dark sky policy and it ensures our skies will remain dark. And in 20 years, I call it vanity lighting. I don't know what the term of art is for highlighting your trees and your fronts of your houses and your backs of your houses. And my neighbor right behind me, even, even, a new street came in behind us, and my next door neighbor behind me now can, because of a street light, can, do finger shadows on his wall. And he's, he's 150 yards from, I guess he doesn't even abut the development.
Okay, so maybe the problem with this sentence is the verb tense. Maybe we should say it used to have one of the best dark sky bulbs.
I don't know. It was kind of a rhetorical question to Werner, who understands and knows these things. It's just an observation that everybody says, "Oh, we used to be able to look up and see the Milky Way. We can't see the Milky Way anymore."
So, and I think what's important here, so you have you do have a lighting committee here in town, and, I can tell you that, that I believe that committee has been working on, a rewrite of the ordinance, that would be brought forward. I don't know of the current status of where that rewrite is at, but I think what's recognized is that there's numerous, I think, practical issues with the way the lighting ordinance is structured, that may have been easier to deal with in past years or initially when it was created. A lot of what you look at in terms of requirements, around lumen outputs and things of that nature, really involves policing, what type of light bulb that somebody has in their fixture. And from a practical perspective, is just a very difficult thing to try to enforce in terms of chasing down the lumen output of any particular light bulb, in a fixture. So I do know the committee has been working towards a rewrite of that, but I don't know what the current status of that is.
Okay.
Warner, can you kind of educate us on, a little bit more about the inception of this? As far as, I drive down Log Cabin Road and it's dark and, where I live, I'm just out in the middle of the woods. Was this kind of started as like, the density started getting so great that houses are right next to each other. And then, somebody wants to have Paul mentioned somebody wants to have a floodlight on their house, and it just, starts to inhibit other people's, dark sky views.
Yeah, no. So I can't speak a lot about the inception of it, but oftentimes, you'll have lighting ordinances that get pulled into play in communities where you have, a fair amount of commercial development, and really a large part of what these types of ordinances will usually dictate is going to be types and styles of fixtures that show up in parking lots, and mostly along your public ways. So it dictates a lot of the type of fixture, whether you have these types of full cutoff fixtures that are intentionally direct the light down onto the surface, as opposed to emitting kind of a broader glare that goes off to all sides. The parking lot at 32 North Street, I think, is a good example of parking lot lighting that was, I want to say, actually designed. The design was put forward by the lighting committee, where you have these type of fixtures that have, like I said, they're a full, they're a cutoff fixture that directs the light downward, as opposed to, just out all over the place.
Right. And, it's very commonplace with planning boards all across the country, really. For the planning board to require new commercial development to do just what Werner said, is to point the light down so it's not shining into the sky. So that's become well established. What's more difficult to get a handle on is the residents, because the lighting technology is so ubiquitous and inexpensive these days. And I think, Paul, you made a comment that I thought would probably kind of had really good insight into what's changing, and that is there's a lot of people moving to Kennebunkport from out of state, and they're coming from places where that a lot of light is normal. You know, people live in places with higher crime rates and they illuminate their property to protect the house, and then they come to Kennebunkport and they do the same thing.
They're not allowed to have guns down there.
Well, it's true, but you know, I think it's part of a cultural thing. They don't realize that they've moved to a place where you don't need to light up everything.
Right. Yeah, and you get into some of the practical issues, with it as well. I mean, who doesn't like to have, their driveway well lit? If they're out there with a snowblower, looking to clear the driveway and wanting to be able to see things, which may be a practical issue, but to that point, does it need to, does the spotlight need to be set at a timer, that runs all throughout the night, for no good practical reason, other than, the perception that you're dealing with a crime deterrent.
So is this more of a are we putting this in here because we're more concerned with a residential issue, or?
Yeah, from what I've heard from you guys over the last 2 years is that's where most of the problem's coming from.
Right, but it's.
So, I mean, this is just the vision.
Yeah.
Strategy.
I'll tell you.
The vision is.
Just walking back from Dock Square down School Street at 10 o'clock at night, if you miss something, you could trip on the curb quite easily and wind up in the middle of the street. It's very, very dark.
Right, but is that a conflicting? Yeah, I'm just, the policy will be rigorously enforced if we, again, I'm trying to think where I live, where I can't even see my neighbors in relation to where Paul has different concerns.
I'm just talking streetlights.
Yeah.
Right. But even those, if they exist, if we need more streetlights, that's one thing. And that, that's not necessarily under dark skies, although if streetlights go in, they should be properly designed, of course, and illuminate the walking areas, not just broadly spread light.
I agree.
Absolutely.
You should buy flashlights for everybody.
Yeah, well,
you can.
I'm just.
Yeah. You can design them, and they can turn on and off as you're walking. They can pick you up. I mean, they have that in a lot of places.
So we've already, so the second sentence will remain dark. We've lost a lot of darkness. And there are communities in Maine that are striving even for certification as dark sky communities because it brings tourists and money. Because, many people I've brought to this area have remarked over the years that, wow, I never see this, wherever they come from. They just don't see the sky. But we have lost a lot in 20 years.
So, Paul, you're suggesting the word remain is problematic then, huh?
Yeah, and I just don't understand, as Werner, I don't understand what the current policy, whether the current policy is effective or not when it comes to residential. So it's the first sentence is maybe factually correct, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't change that.
I think, so from a practical perspective, we don't issue permits or regulate the installation of exterior lighting on somebody's house.
So that's the problem.
And so, but to that point as well, a lot of the language in the current ordinance deals specifically with lumen output, which is really, can change very based on the type of light bulb that you have, in your fixture. And so, I guess, the question from a practical perspective is that, is there a desire to have the town, investigate, the lumen output of light bulbs on people's homes. That becomes the kind of the practical question in terms of, enforcement of something along that nature. And generally speaking, if I pull a light bulb out of a fixture, I don't have a print lumen output on a light bulb. Yeah. There's, typically, they're being spelled out in terms of wattage. But even nowadays, especially with the switch over to LED fixtures.
Oh, that's the problem.
To look at a fixture mounted on the side of the house, you're not necessarily, it's not like you're finding a data plate that says this, but, in a kind of clear and obvious location, it says this fixture is rated at X.
But all these properties that I'm talking about, where people are spending a fortune on architects and builders, and certainly if there were some standards for exterior lighting that encouraged best practices in terms of where the lights are shining, I don't know lighting, but I'm sure there are standards because other communities are doing this, that we should encourage to try to retain what is a precious and scarce resource, and that is seeing the sky at nighttime. And if we don't have any exterior lighting standards, then now I know why I'm seeing what I'm seeing.
Well, Paul, I'm looking at Chapter 245 of the code, and it actually does have some pretty specific standards on the amount of lumens. I know as a homeowner, I'd probably have trouble doing all the math here to figure out, what exactly I can do.
Oh, so Dan, are you a violator? Are you violating that?
I don't know.
No,
I know
but an
doesn't
architect
go on when I want it to, when I'm out there sometimes. But what I agree with you. But I guess I'm kind of pulling back a little bit. So this is a vision statement. I think we should have a comment in there about what we want for dark skies. And then I think when we get into another section, or strategy, we give the lighting committee an opportunity to rewrite this.
Exactly. The last few minutes, you guys have been talking how to solve the problem. What we really should be talking about is with what we aspire to. And I think what we aspire to is bringing the dark skies back to the way they used to be.
Absolutely. And this was last updated in 92, so it must not have
So
been.
does that last sentence, should we change it to the policy will continue to be enforced? And
we can lose that one.
I think he's taking it out.
Yeah, take that one out.
Delete.
Well, and I think to that point, it's, you want to provide, provide support to your lighting committee in terms of the development of, of an ordinance that meets, that works with today's technology.
Exactly.
One comment came in, says another reason to make lots larger and houses smaller.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Comment related to the impacts of lighting on neighbors was another reason to make lots larger and houses smaller.
I think means there'll be less impact upon your neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, and that's,
Okay. Well, once again, that's a proposal of how to solve the problem. But here we're looking at.
Okay.
What time do we got? 7:59.
Yeah.
Ooh, we got to move fast here. You still got 2 more pages to go here.
Well,
Painful.
Maybe
not. So really, it's the environmental protection and open space, and after that, it's just the scenic vistas, right?
Yeah.
So I would propose that we keep going if that's okay with everyone. If we can hold it to less than 10 minutes, is that possible?
Sounds good.
Okay, and I just want to remind everybody, what we're looking at is our vision, what we aspire to. We're not going to try to solve these problems in this document.
Right. Thank you, Tom, for that reminder.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Careful, it will shine a light on you.
third sentence, can somebody explain that to me a little bit more?
Impervious surfaces?
Yeah, that's a source of stormwater pollution. Stormwater hits the impervious surface and carries it into your brooks and streams, and so that's an environmental issue. And the way you reduce that pollution is by reducing the extent of the hot top.
How do we do that when there's going to be more development?
You can have impervious pavement. You can insist that they put in a gravel road instead of a paved road or parking lot or whatever. There are different technologies.
Lot coverage requirements.
Yeah, so there are ways to doing it. But what it's saying here is, let's be mindful not to have too much hot top, because that's gonna affect how much pollution goes in the environment.
Are we saying, don't do this in the residential, but we also want to improve sidewalks, and we're expanding that, we're contradicting ourselves.
Well, they have to be concrete.
Not necessarily. We're looking at the whole town. We're taking stepping back and say, okay, we've got X amount of square feet of impervious surfaces. Let's be mindful what we do next, so we don't end up with more hot top.
Flooding issues.
Yeah, so you can have smaller parking lots with a bit more sidewalks. You can balance it any way you want. We're not trying to get into the details.
Right.
We're just saying let's reduce how much hot top we have, because that's causing some problems.
So the first comment in red was provided to me by the person who runs the Plover program out at Goose Rocks. That last sentence says our plover population will expand, so it'll be delisted. And because there are more birds that are of concern than plovers, her comment was just to say provide a safe and healthy habitat for shorebirds, for all shorebirds.
I'm fine with that. Is everybody else okay?
That sounds good.
That sounds good.
Answer that one? Yeah.
Expanding our sewers, infrastructure, septic system, septic sewers. I don't know how you work that in there, but that's certainly.
Well, you could put it right at the end of the paragraph.
Well, you say that in the first sentence, in the second sentence, you said leaky septic systems will be replaced with functioning systems or connection to municipal.
We do say
it's in there.
covered.
So
Okay.
I think that takes care of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Although it's more than leaky systems, the person is making the comment that we should be encouraging, particularly in resource-sensitive areas, I would add, that we, find a way to, over time, increase municipal sewers. So how about...
If I can suggest...
And how about... Oh, go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, if I can just suggest replacing, the word leaky with failing.
Yes, I like that.
That's better.
Sounds more professional.
Yeah.
Leaky. Your time is running.
I mean, by design,
They all leak.
they all leak.
I didn't have you guys looking over my shoulder when I wrote the first draft.
Yeah.
Leaking doesn't mean it's failing either. You can fix it.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Failure is at least, defined elsewhere.
Right.
Can we put in the second part of that sentence, replace with functioning systems and connections to municipal sewer will be encouraged for new development, particularly in resource.
Yeah, I would leave the word "or" in there, because there are some
I'm trying to.
that are beyond the extent of the sewer, no way up north. No,
I was just trying to incorporate the new development,
right? But
as opposed to just keeping it singularly focused on failing systems for existing homes. And maybe we're trying to accomplish too much in one sentence.
And what if we just make it
It's okay.
two separate sentences and just say connections to municipal sewer will be encouraged?
I like that.
That works.
Good idea.
That works.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz.
No problem.
So at the very last comment I liked here as well about the pollinators. Replace all pollinators would do their job efficiently in great numbers. Sustainable landscapes will reduce water consumption, develop wildlife habitats, and provide plantings for pollinators. That's a good comment.
So are you suggesting to replace the language in this sentence with landscape design?
Sustainable landscapes will reduce water consumption, develop wildlife habitats, and provide plantings for pollinators.
Yeah, that's much better.
Pollination.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, this down here. Okay.
Yeah, that last one. Because that'll also help with the pesticide stuff too. Right?
Yep.
I have a beautiful natural Maine lawn, all different shades of green weed, and looks good to me. I don't put anything on it. Clover, absolutely. It doesn't grow as fast. I don't have to cut it as often. Of course, nobody can see it.
Our lawns are the same, I think. More of a hayfield.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there's another sentence in here about keeping walkways and beaches free of debris, including plastic waste. Is that something that folks would like to throw up into this paragraph?
Well, it's certainly hard to argue that we don't want that.
Yeah.
Liz, why don't you put that right at the end of the paragraph?
Yeah.
All right, a lot of good comments making this one better.
Couple comments in the chat. Let's see. Providing a strategy for cleaning up polluted beach water. I think that's a solution. Strategy, something that will flag for consideration during the strategy development.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be important to add protection for lobsters and shellfish. So we could
add that to the end of the paragraph.
we've got shellfish beds.
And maybe in that sentence, we can say something about the protection of them from whatever is threatening them that might be under our control, which
Yeah,
which could include
Yeah.
herbicides and pesticides, or plastics, or
Mhm.
yeah, we want them healthy, not just open.
See a thumbs up there, so good.
Can we say all of Kennebunkport shellfish? Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the other screen. Did you do this already?
I don't know if I did it totally. I changed it to say protection of shellfish beds and lobster populations will support recreational and commercial harvesting.
Good.
You think that gets at that?
Yeah.
Not really protecting the intrinsic value of those things, but
Okay.
By doing that, it does.
Anything
All right.
else to add to environmental protection? I guess we're good. Open space preservation.
I know some people do not agree with land development will be more compact. I happen to think that's a good idea in parts of town. It would help to solve the affordability problem if it was done correctly. But there'd be plenty of people willing to pay $800,000 for a lovely
So what if
compact.
we lose the words "will be more compact"? Just strike that from the sentence.
Be less intrusive than in the times past.
Yeah.
Everybody should be in favor of that.
I think the next sentence is probably not going to be,
Understood by all.
yeah.
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 Right.
So maybe we should use that sentence. That's kind of like a nerdy planner thing, you know?
Right. The academic in me, like appreciates that statement.
Yeah, we're gonna look at it. He said, "This is great." Then he said, "Wait a minute."
Euclidean zoning, I've never seen those two words together.
Oh, it's a big.
Where have I
Take it back
been?
to school.
I have gaps in my education.
There's a good program at the University of Southern Maine.
So what strict measures will be put in place to protect, the last sentence if we already have laws in place for that? For shoreline
Stricter ones.
zoning.
I don't.
Right. No, I'm just wondering
No, it's
what that means. Because we're already enforcing that kind of stuff.
It means, well, maybe strict is not the best word to use, but
Maybe just measures.
measures
Measures.
that are sufficient to protect.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Sufficient.
Sufficient
Why don't we
measures.
say sufficient?
Sufficient measures.
So,
Place strict with sufficient.
And it could be that they're in place today, but we're just saying 10 years from now, they should be. They will be.
Well, give me an example, though. I'm just curious.
Could be
Well,
like to.
It's like you're not building within 100 feet of, if you're on a stream, you're not building right up to the edge. You're not cutting down
But
your
that's
trees.
what I mean. The environmental protection. It's you can.
Not filling in a
You
vertical
can
pool.
go into up to 75 feet of something if, not every lot is conforming. If somebody builds a house on a piece of property and they're within 75 feet,
Yeah. I mean,
technically they can build. So,
there's a lot of debate on how many feet do you really need, 50, 75, 100. And that's all good discussion, but this isn't really the place to try to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And our goal is to have whatever number of feet is necessary to protect the resource.
Right. That's all.
Yeah.
Or actions or whatever it might be.
yeah, no, I'm just thinking open space preservation. If somebody builds a house in an area where everybody sees, they should be entitled to do it within reason,
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. 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 We're not.
if it bothers you, keep driving. I don't know what to tell you. So,
We have a couple comments in the chat that I'll just read off. This is not very consumer-friendly language, although I agree with the intent. Clover is good for all. Would you please give me a current example of sprawl? And then I think with regard to the last sentence that we were talking about, this is a very important sentence. Please be thoughtful. Strict needs to be there. So a couple issues.
I mean, the sample of sprawl is the issue we have with. I mean, look at trying to get a sewer line out to all our homes so that we wouldn't have to rely on septic systems. I mean,
Well, I think
the cost of that is very expensive, and that leads to some of the issues we have. Right.
I think the comment, Dan, if I understood it,
Okay.
maybe was, where do we have suburban sprawl? Do we have suburban sprawl in town? We're making the comment that we're weaning ourselves. And I know that's a generic, or have we gotten rid of that sentence?
Yeah, we took rid of the sentence.
I thought we took it out.
We need
took it out.
to either get rid of it or
Yeah, we struck that sentence.
I thought we got rid of that.
The equity in zoning is not going to be understood by many people.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that comment that strict should be there.
I agree. It ought not to be something that's easily waived
Yeah.
by, you know, Werner or a planning board.
Yeah, but I think that's in the weeds. I think sufficient to maintain our natural resources as we described in the plan.
What if we say marshes, wetlands, ponds, streams, vernal pools, and aquifers will be protected?
Yeah, the word protect
There you
is
go.
in there. That's the key. I mean, that's what everybody's in agreement is protection, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Aren't they already protected though?
I
We want
don't
to
know.
keep it that
Well,
way.
it could
We want to keep it
change.
that way. We want the plan to support what's in place, and there may be other things we need to add. Not really sure.
Well, why don't we take out sufficient, just say measures? Because the key word is protection, right?
Well, I like the way Liz
Yeah.
reordered the sentence. It's an absolute. They're going to be protected. Marshes, wetlands, ponds, streams will be protected.
Yeah, do that. Let's not get hung up on strict or sufficient.
Because
or,
the state
enough.
changes the guidelines from time to time. They may decide that given sea level rise, we need to do X.
Right.
And today it's not even on the agenda.
Right.
And if they tell us we need to protect it, then the comprehensive plan would say, well, let's follow those guidelines.
They're gonna force us to move the marsh. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right.
But they'd have to follow our zoning requirements if we have this comprehensive plan approved.
Well, you're right. No, then it's right. The comprehensive plan is a good tool to have in your toolbox in case you start getting pushed around by the state.
Exactly. Local government.
Open space preservation. Any other further comments on that one?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Sounds good. Yep.
All right.
Good.
Scenic vistas. I think this will go quickly, but I've been wrong before.
Let's add that island someone just bought.
Yeah.
Scroll on, there's more stuff. Isn't there? You know,
Well, they certainly can't move it, so.
okay, that is the whole list. All right.
The monastery. I think that we say we had to pull that off.
That's in Kennebunk.
The Kennebunk riverfront, including the monastery
Yeah,
grounds. We don't have
Not
any
in our
control over.
town.
That's not in the town. I knew there was something on here we
I mean,
had.
we can look at it, but
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
our side.
I thought that was struck, but I guess it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we mentioned that before.
Yeah, I remember too.
The question that you run into whenever you have property that's privately held and privately owned,
Yep.
is that everybody likes how it looks, how it looks, but
They're
so
not paying the taxes though.
well, it's
Yeah.
it's. I think the sediment here is nice for sure, and the Kennebunkport is fortunate that the entities that that are in control of these properties are like-minded, in that sense. They all are interested in protecting and preserving the heritage and the scenic quality of those properties.
So, yeah.
I do think
But we're not saying that they have to preserve them. They're worthy of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's worthy of us in the town to negotiate with them if they're right.
Right.
And it gives us a little extra. Hey, what's in our comp plan? We can do this.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, Clock Farm is a good example. It's it's private property. It's a private home, and obviously it's a very significant piece of architectural history in town, and it's really it's one of those iconic pieces in town. But
Sure.
we got to recognize that it's private property, and if they wanted to paint it purple, then that
Right.
Yeah, they're
Make it out. Hooray!
They're
Got a
entitled
nice
to do
blue
so.
nice LED blue light.
If that happens, the code enforcement's phones are going to light right up.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the boat school is pretty awesome.
What?
The boat school.
Yep.
Landing school?
That's
The
a,
landing school.
Landing. Yeah.
That's a Arundel, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not in our
you're
town.
missing
It's
first.
in
first
Arundel.
Yeah, that's in Arundel.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's nice school.
It's beautiful.
First.
And the Galloway, the Belted Galloway is next door at Kitty's Farm.
Warner, how many calls do you think?
Congregational church? Is that what you said, Jim?
First congregational.
Okay,
First combination.
we have a couple of comments in chat. What happened to the Durrell's Bridge view shed?
That was one of the ones that wasn't in Kennebunkport, is
The
that?
Rose Bridge is in
That-
Kennebunk.
Correct.
It says view shed.
You
I don't
can't see
know
it from
what is.
you can't see it from Kennebunkport, can you?
No,
Correct.
No place.
no,
Yeah.
that's
Okay,
Kennebunk
so
and
that's what
Arundel.
happened. We wandered off the reservation again. We're pulled back
There you
in.
go.
So Jim had a comment on First Congregational Church, and I know we went through this, and we
We've
had
already gone, yeah, we struck that one, I think.
Why? It's in Kennebunkport.
No, it's in, yeah, one was, yeah, it's the first and the south, right? Both are.
We had First and South, and I think we took out First, but
But yeah, that's in town though. It's in town now.
Are they separate? They're separate?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Across
I
town.
can't remember why we took one out.
We might have had like second or the other also.
I think we had second or something like that. Yeah, there was a different name.
All
I
right.
think we accidentally pulled
Okay.
out.
Other comment from chat is Hathaway's or Smart's Hill? I'm just going to test your knowledge of local landmarks.
Is Hathaway's the view from the mouth of the Vatican?
Sure, that's
That's where the
Same
goats
one.
hang out.
Hathaway Sheep
that's
Farm.
already there. The view from the mouth of the Batson from Goose Fair. Isn't that
Farm.
what is referenced?
Yeah, I think that's what Hathaway's own. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the Hathaways.
Okay.
All right, so we're adding Hathaways?
No.
No, it's already.
No,
We're
no,
good. We're good. I
the
think we're
name
good.
isn't there, but the location is.
Okay.
Okay. So you guys will update this and
Yes.
send us a new clean version?
We
Okay.
sure will. Yeah, then you can we can tweak it a little more, but I would
Sure.
encourage you just to like tweak it, not
Right.
start the conversation all over again.
Okay. All right. I would recommend, do the latest of the hour, that we bypass the comp plan update schedule and add that to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable? Is
Yeah,
there
there was
anything
one
you
other-
guys? I'm sorry, was there another comment?
There was one other comment on Goose Fair, means to me where the flamingos are. So does anyone really know what the name of Hathaway's farm is? Hathaway's Hill? Is it?
No.
So it's the old Smart Farm. That area of land there that's adjacent to what's also known as Indian. The Indian Ridge subdivision was part of that. I do believe that field, though, in terms of Hathaway's there on the barn side, is I believe that there's a private deed restriction that's in place there that that maintains
That view?
that
Okay.
right.
The sheep farm? I mean, currently it's a.
It's known pretty much like the sheep farm.
Yeah, that's how I was, educated on it at the time. Was always, it was known as a sheep farm. I know, John Hathaway had sheep there, for some time. I haven't seen him as of late, but
So instead
I saw
of,
him yesterday.
how are they? Okay.
Yeah.
instead of Goose Fair Farm, I'll write the sheep farm. Is that?
Goose Fair means where the flamingos are. Yeah.
I'm very confused.
Yeah.
There's a
I think we're talking
wetlands.
about two different places.
Yeah.
There's a
That's
there's
right.
a wetlands.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of flamingos.
That's right.
Right before
Yeah.
Goose Fair.
Flamingo.
That's what
I
we're
think the
talking about.
flamingos are the attraction, though.
Yeah, but are the flamingos protected? We put them in the other.
Some of
They
them
are.
are faded.
Only when they're nesting.
They are. Only when they're nesting. That's right.
They are protected under freedom of expression.
Yeah,
There you go.
They're protected.
This is an example of what happens when you guys go past 8 p.m.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is. I'm trying to pull
We're
the speed
falling
back in,
apart.
Tom. I'm trying to pull him in. All right.
We're punchy.
Okay,
I
but
think-
all right. So are we adding the sheep farm in?
I think that was what we intended, right?
Yes, I agree.
It's
That
there.
view from Route 9,
Right.
looking out toward the Batson River, not the next view, which is also a lovely view, which abuts trust property, I think, because I'd hike there.
That is a great show.
So I can't see the language on the screen anymore, so I can't tell you, Liz. Hold
I think it
on.
was in there. I think it was on there.
The view across the mouth of the Batson River from the sheep farm on Route 9,
From Gooseberry Farm.
we're going to take out Gooseberry Farm.
Yeah, take out that.
And
That's
put-
the
Okay, so we're
confusing
taking
part.
that out, and then
This is-
sheep farm, is that in capital?
Not in caps, not in
Not?
caps, just the sheep farm. Because it doesn't really, that's not its official name.
There
That's
you
the
go.
local name.
No.
All right. That's good. I think that's a good list.
That's good.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Hold on.
So what we
Oh,
got
we have
there yet? We got to do,
You have
Get
to
the
do
minutes.
the thing.
Move that the
I'd like to-
minutes be accepted.
all
Yeah.
right.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
All right. All right. Now, Jim, do your thing.
First of all, I want to thank all of our visitors, and we encourage
Absolutely.
you to come every time we have a meeting. That
Absolutely.
was excellent input, and we really appreciate it. But seeing no other items on our agenda for tonight, I move that this meeting be adjourned.
Second.
Thank you, Jen. All
Thank
approved?
Everybody.
Approved.
Bye.
Approved.
All right. Hey, thanks, Dave, for hanging in there.